My goals have shifted from winning races and fighting for championships to seeing my children grow, passing on my values, helping them up when they fall, listening to them when they need me.
It goes without saying that everyone was emotionally hit by the news of Vettel retiring. But cry no more, as we're likely going to see more of the German on the grid. The four-time world champion spoke about his plans recently, and although he said that he's a family man first, apart from being a racer, he and F1 are a combination that's not that easy to break. There are a couple of teams that could use his abilities, and if he chooses to not participate as a racer, Vettel has received a very interesting managing role in the team that he won his 4 championships with. What more can we say about Vettel's career? He's done it all, winning the first race in 2008 in Toro Rosso, in times where Red Bull hasn't had a win, only to go to Red Bull and win the first race for the team in 2009 as well. It was a very close championship battle between him and Button, with a Briton winning it at the end, but the next 4 years belonged to Vettel. And although he's had some issues with his teammate Webber and with Alonso, who's been one of his fiercest competitors during Vettel's championship days, the German managed to get above all of them. Vettel decided to leave Red Bull in 2015 and join Ferrari, a team which he failed to win a championship despite spending 6 years. The closest he's ever come was in 2018, but mechanical issues did their part and Vettel was left without his 5th championship. The last 2 years in Aston Martin were kind of desperate for a driver like Vettel, with him fighting for scrap points and winning 2 podiums, one of which was deleted due to Vettel being disqualified in Budapest in 2021 for failing to provide a sufficient fuel sample. Still, it doesn't mean that Vettel's career has gone to waste. The 4-time world champion has 53 wins, 57 pole positions and 122 podium finishes. That's something that puts him on the list of the best drivers to ever do it in this sport. But now that he's announced his retirement in a 4-minute emotional video on social media, is there a chance that we'll see him back in a racing car? It's not an easy answer to the question, and although all of us are hoping to see more of the German, it's still up to him to decide. However, Hamilton believes that Vettel will be back sooner rather than later, as these two rivals have become very close friends over the course of time. Hamilton spoke about Vettel returning to the sport sometime soon during the Abu Dhabi press conference, adding, "I was just sitting here thinking most drivers are coming back, like he's coming back. You're probably going to come back. We're seeing other drivers coming back. So I'm sitting here kind of accepting, yes, it's your last race, but you'll be back. Formula 1 has a way of sucking you back in. We've noticed that from so many other drivers." Obviously, Vettel has turned into one of the most loved characters on the grid, after being one of the most despised ones in the F1 world. Thanks to his actions towards his teammate Webber from 2010 to 2013, and in his villain days at Ferrari, Vettel wasn't really loved and was perceived as a disrespectful driver. Still, thanks to his actions outside of racing and his ambassador role in F1, which he has utilised perfectly to make changes around the world about situations that are not really close to racing, Vettel has turned into a great role model for young drivers and for the sport as well. Now, before we move on, we wanted to tell you about the amazing deal the official F1 store is doing right now. Holiday season is here and they're doing daily discounts on all orders, so check out the first link down in the description to get yourself this juicy discount. So, can we see Vettel back in F1? Before we go to his official statement, let's see what Ralf Schumacher has to say about this situation. Ralf is a very close friend of Sebastian Vettel, due to the fact that his brother, Michael Schumacher, was a mentor to Vettel in the 4-time world champion's early days. That's a role that Vettel took on for Michael's son Mick, with the young driver now not being part of F1 for the 2023 season. When talking about Vettel's future, Ralf added, "Sebastian Vettel is a 4-time world champion who's achieved great things. Formula 1 will miss Sebastian Vettel as a person. Unfortunately, things didn't go quite so well for him with Aston Martin. I would have wished differently for him. A comeback by Sebastian in Formula 1 cannot be ruled out. You can see that now again with Hülkenberg and Alonso, who's always keen to come back or to continue. Sebastian, with his vast experience, already has the chance to come back in a year or two and race at the front. Whether he'll actually do that then, I don't know. Maybe after a year or two with his family, he'll have the strength to make a comeback." Well, it's not an easy thing to accept, but still, Vettel won't race in the 2023 season. This is a path that Alonso has taken as well. However, he was always keen on returning to the sport, which we cannot 100% say would be the case with Vettel. However, he received a very interesting role offered to him by Helmut Marko, the guy who was responsible for Vettel's entry into the sport. Marko respects Sebastian Vettel a lot, so much to the point that he's offered him his job. When talking to the media, Marko said that he's 80 years old and that time will tell whether he still has it in him to do the scouting job for Red Bull, and Vettel would be the perfect successor. It's not excluded that Vettel will return to a position in management. I'm almost 80, so that would be something. We discussed it, and I think such a position would appeal to him. That came up in that conversation between us. I'm convinced that the potential and the personality are there, but now we let him plant some trees and then we'll see what happens. Christian Horner also spoke about Vettel having a manager's role sometime in the future, to which he added, "He's a great people person. He understands the value of people and the contribution they make to success. And I think he's turned into somewhat of a driver counsellor the last couple of years as well. So it really depends what he wishes to apply himself to. He's one of those guys that's annoyingly good at anything he chooses to do. So I'm sure if he chose that path, he'd be very good at it." It's going to be a very interesting period ahead of Vettel, but the public's opinion is that the German will return to racing sooner rather than later. One huge factor for this narrative is that Vettel added that he would be delighted if F1 allowed him to be the 21st racer on the grid for just one race on the calendar, Suzuka. This is Vettel's favourite track, and nothing would delight him more than to continue racing at this event only in 2023. While this is a very unlikely outcome, it still shows the wish and the willpower that Vettel has when it comes to returning to the sport. But what about a full-time racing seat? In 2026, Audi is entering the sport, and it's very likely they're going to go for a full German lineup, something that Alpine has managed to accomplish, with the difference being an all-French lineup in a French team. One candidate they're likely going to pursue is Mick Schumacher, who is now without a seat, and if he doesn't find one prior to 2026, he would be the #1 candidate for that spot. Apart from him, the German manufacturer will likely consider the likes of Vettel, given how close he is with Mick, and how both of them can help each other have a decent season out there. And what does Vettel have to say about the comeback? Is he considering a move that will propel him back onto the grid? When talking about this situation, Vettel added, "I think you naturally do look at other stuff. I don't know the answer yet. I quite look forward to the idea of nothing at first and then see what it does to me. There's lots of other things in my head as well, other interests and ideas outside racing. But yeah, obviously I've done this for so long and it's been central to my life. So it will be difficult to say that I'm not going to miss it, but how much and whether then I start to look at something else, we'll see how it goes." What Vettel is going to decide is up to us to wait and see, but obviously he does have plans of making a return sometimes to the sport. So what do you think will happen with Vettel and his return to the sport? Let us know in the comments down below.